Today we're going to talk about the difference between a good video game remake and a bad video game remake. Now, I'm sure we've all seen good remakes and bad remakes, and we all know the difference, right? We've all seen it. We all understand when a remake is good and when a remake is bad. But what a lot of people seem to not understand is how you can tell that a remake is going to be good or that a remake is going to be bad. And it's a lot of pattern recognition, and it's a lot of well, essentially, it's a lot of just listening to the development process, right? And this applies to sequels, this applies to reboots, this applies to reiterations of the same franchise. Really, any new step in the franchise that is taken, you can usually tell ahead of time whether or not it's going to be bad. And it really does come down to the vision. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because Veilguard came out recently, and that was ass. Kingdom Come 2 came out 3 days ago, and that's so far everybody's really happy about it. And there's a few other games that are coming out and that have come out, and they were either really good or they were really bad. We've got Warcraft refunded, sorry, reforged. We've got the Resident Evil remakes, 2, 3, and 4. 3 was poorly received, but what happened? They looked at that and they went, okay, what did people not like? All right, let's not do that mistake again. And in 4 comes out. It's so good that nobody's playing the original anymore, right? Dead Space, same thing. And so let's actually break down what causes the remake to be good. So number one of the things that I look for immediately when I'm looking at the development process of a game that I'm interested in, so this was something that I looked for in Veilguard, this was something I looked for in Kingdom Come, and Dead Space, right? I looked at the devs, I looked at who the devs were reaching out to in order to get opinions. Now, for Dead Space, who did the devs reach out to? They reached out to the game, right? They were making a remake, they played the game, they went, we want this to be as faithful to the original vision as possible. Now, we're going to make a couple changes. We're going to give Isaac Clarke a face that is much more like his voice actor, so this was a change. A lot of people didn't like it, didn't like the new face. It's like, it's a nitpick, right? A lot of people were unhappy with it, but overall, the game succeeded despite it. And another big thing, and this was honestly the big difference. There were a couple of other differences, but this was the big one between the remake and the original, and it was that Isaac Clarke was now a voiced protagonist. Most people ahead of time were hesitant, and they said as much. Hey, we don't know if we want the protagonist to be voiced because he wasn't voiced before. And the reaction of the developers when they presented this information to the audience and the audience responded negatively was very telling. Because the developers, rather than responding with hubris, arrogance, being rude to people, they said, okay, we understand why you would be hesitant about this because originally it wasn't, and we understand that vision. However, we believe that we can tell a better story this way. We believe that we can take this experience that was here and it's going to still be here. It's the exact same story. Every single line of dialogue is the exact same, with the exception of the fact that now Isaac is there and he speaks to the other characters. And the result of this was, rather than having Isaac be this kind of just almost an automaton that is going around and doing whatever he's told, we have a competent engineer put in the worst situation of his life and rising to the occasion, rising to meet the expectations that are put before him. And because of him being voiced, the experience was elevated. And they said, guys, trust us. We understand why you're hesitant. We get it. You're right. It's different. It might suck. We don't think it will. And having that level of humility is very telling because it means that you're reaching out to the fans to know, hey, what do you want? Then we look at something like Warcraft 3 Remake, where they presented something and they said, this is what it's going to be. And the fans all said, hey, this looks really good. Can we see more? Radio silence. We're a little hesitant about the radio silence. Why aren't you giving us any more information? Radio silence. Rudeness whenever there were conversations regarding it, but there was very few. So it was just radio silence. So the fans are not included in the process of the revitalization of a game that is a fan favorite. In fact, a lot of people still play Warcraft 3. It's still very much an alive game. And yet you couldn't get a word out of Blizzard regarding it. It was very strange. You can see in a lot of very successful games that getting the fans involved is a very easy way to get them invested. And if they're invested, they're willing to pay for it. Baldur's Gate 3 got the fans invested, and look at the success that was. Space Marine 2 did the same thing. Gothic Remake, they're doing the same thing. And I reacted to the trailer like today on stream. So this is gonna come out. It's gonna be yesterday on stream. And I got excited about the trailer because it looks really good. And they're gonna put out a making of. It's gonna start on the 7th, which is when this video is coming out. So look forward to me, reacting to that, dissecting it, talking about it, all that stuff, right? But at the end of the day, having the input of the fans is immensely important. Secondly, it's important to make sure that the people that are working on a franchise care about the franchise. Now, we've seen this a lot, right? Every other Netflix show that is filled up with people who don't really give a crap about the game franchise, don't really care, they don't really like it, they're not super into it. It doesn't do anything for them. And so they want to take that and they want to change it. And when you do that, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem because you're no longer creating something for the purposes of elevating what is there because you love it. It becomes about you taking something for yourself rather than you giving to others, because that's what art is. Art is expression. It's not about you. It's about others. It's about expressing yourself, because that's what expression is. It's taking what's inside and externalizing it. And when you take something like Rings of Power, the Wheel of Time Netflix series, the Witcher Netflix series, all of these different series that are essentially remakes of an established story in television form, you can very much see that there is a lack of love for the franchise. And what we got out of the back rooms of The Witcher really showed this, where pretty much the only person who cared about the series, about the franchise, was Henry Cavill. And what do? They ostracized him. They kicked him out of the show. They didn't want him anymore. And what do the fans do? They went, okay, we're not going to watch it anymore. And so the series died. And that's just how it always goes. And you look at something like Veilguard, because this is about video games specifically, but it can extend to everything. Veilguard. If you kept up with the development, you very much could tell that the game director, Corinne Bush, had no idea what she was doing. She had never played a Dragon Age game, neither did most of the people in charge of the development process of the game. Now, a lot of the developers were from older games, not that many, but some. A lot of the writers were from previous games, but the problem was directional. When you are given a specific direction as a writer, and you're not a lead writer, you don't decide where the game is going, it it turns into a problem. When Mark Daram made Dragon Age Origins, Mark Dara or Dara was the game director. He made Dragon Age Origins. He had a vision. He wanted to make, and you can tell what the vision is. He wanted to make an epic adventure, saving the world from this evil that wanted to destroy it, wanted to corrupt it. And it was very clearly his vision. He was expressing himself through the game. And he hired people who aligned with that vision, and he made something that everyone could enjoy. He made Dragon Age 2, and I think everybody can agree that Dragon Age 2 is not as good of a Dragon Age game as Origins. But then again, no Dragon Age game is as good of a Dragon Age game as Origins because, well, the series kind of peaked at its start. But the flaws of Dragon Age 2 were in the gameplay. The loop just wasn't there. You could try as you might, but it was worse than what we had before, which is understandable. But at the same time, it comes down to whether or not the director cares. Corinne Bush didn't care. The directors behind all of those Witcher series that I talked about didn't care. The director behind Warcraft Reforged didn't care. Now there's some fumbles here and there, like we can talk about the Resident Evil 3 remake, which was a fumble, but you could tell that there was love in it. It was a fumble for directional reasons. Like, they had the correct vision, but they did something wrong, right? And the player said, hey, we don't like this, this, and this. And what did they do? Resident Evil 4, amazing game, right? Everybody loves it. So sometimes this fails, but it's an honest mistake when it does. And the game is still enjoyable, it's just, right? It lacks something. But then when you notice these patterns of, number one, not listening to the fans, number two, not caring about the franchise, you see something like Veilguard Be Born, where they were less concerned with creating something that was faithful to the series, something that would call to, fantasy enjoyers, and they were much more interested in creating something that would be appreciated by a very specific type of people who don't really care about a video game. They don't really care about what's there. They care about having little funny characters that they can write their own stories about, because these people lack the creativity to create their own stories, create their own franchise, create their own characters. And so they need someone else to do that for them. And then their creativity activates and they can write all of their, funny little stories about the characters rather than use what's present. And this is exactly what occurred with the Witcher series and other Netflix stuff. Like, what? Since I mentioned the Witcher series, I kind of want to talk about a specific episode that was the nail in the coffin for me. If you've played Witcher, the Witcher games, 1, 2, and 3, you know who the wolf Witchers are. There's 3 of them other than Geralt. There's Vesemir, there's Lambert, and there's the third one. Now, the third one, Eskel, he is marked by a very large scar across his face. Now, this scar deforms him. The first time Ciri sees him, she screams and faints of horror. But then Eskel becomes one of her biggest comforts in Kaer Morhen. He's always there for her. He's always nice to her. He's constantly comforting her and making sure that she's not afraid. And in the series, rather than giving him this character, they took a character who, both in the books and in the games, was a fan favorite, like I will grant, in the books he was he's not a major character. He was very minor because there was a lot of other wolf witchers, and he was kind of just there. He was amongst them. He was just a deformed one who was nice to Ciri and who she remembers. And by the time of Witcher 3, he's one of the 3 remaining wolf witchers. And everybody loves him because he's just a nice, down-to-earth guy. And what did the Witcher series do to him? Well, they started off by not having that initial interaction between Ciri and Eskel. Like, she faints after looking at him, but it's not the same. It's not done correctly. And later on, he's rude, he's abrasive, he's not friendly to anyone. And by the end of the episode, he is killed by Election. Now, what does this show to us, the viewers? Well, it shows that the Witcher creators of the creators of the Witcher series, not the Witcher creators, they're not the creators of shit. The writers of the series. They didn't care about the story. They didn't care about the characters. They didn't care about the fans. They didn't care about the franchise that they were mishandling. And their way of showing that, because they did want you to know that they didn't care about you, and they've said it a million times in interviews, they've gone out of their way to let you know that they don't like Witcher fans, or gamers, or any of that stuff. They went out of their way to kill a beloved character who did not need to be killed, because he hadn't been killed before. He survives through the books. There was no reason to do that, but they did it anyway. They wanted to do it. They wanted to show that, in fact, we hate you so much, we're going to kill the characters you like. And by doing that, they show that they don't care about the franchise. Now, the third one is, funnily enough, something that I've kind of already mentioned throughout the video, and it's having the wrong priority. When you're making a game or a series, your priority should not be to push a socio-political agenda, much less so a contemporary socio-political agenda. Now, why would this be a bad thing? Well, because, first of all, it dates your product. It dates the piece of art that you are making, because now you are no longer able to enjoy that piece of art unless you understand the specific information that is being referenced in real life. So, for example, you have Tash. Everybody hates Tash. Yes, I understand that. But when we talk about a character like Tash, we very quickly realize why nobody likes her. And it's not because of her identity, though she is a terrible person. It's because of how her identity is portrayed. Now, people dislike Tash because she's a bad person, but also because she's a poorly written character. She's poorly written in the sense that when she has conversations with people, she references topics that are not relevant in the universe of Dragon Age. Now, for example, Tash is non-binary, which we, as people who understand what that binary refers to, we understand what the term non-binary means. It means that you identify as neither man nor as woman. Okay, understandable. The word non-binary comes from our vocabulary. That vocabulary does not exist in the world of Dragon Age. Therefore, when that character states, "I'm non-binary," immediately you understand that you're no longer experiencing a game, you are now experiencing somebody's socio-political message, which immediately makes you care less about the game. This would be fine of course, because you can make a game whose purpose is the socio-political message, of course, if that is in fact the purpose of the game. However, that's not the purpose of Dragon Age. It never has been. The purpose of Dragon Age has always been saving the world. It always, every time. In Dragon Age Origins, you're saving the world from a giant evil dragon. In Dragon Age 2, it's from this... It's not the world, but it's the city from this conflict between... Well, several different conflicts. The first chapter, it's more of a sword and sorcery thing, but then it goes back to being this epic thing. First, it's an invasion from giant bull people. Well, more like dragon people, but you know what I mean. And then second, it's this conflict between mages and Templars. And then in Dragon Age Inquisition, it's against this super powerful ancient mage who wants to rule the world. Well, technically he wants to destroy the world so he can rule over the ashes, but still. And in Veilguard, it's kind of the same thing as Inquisition. Slightly more intimidating antagonists, but only slightly. And unfortunately, rather than hone in on this idea that you are struggling against the end of the world, the game seems more concerned with painting all of your companions as mildly incompetent adult children. Compare this to previous Dragon Age titles, or even contemporary Mass Effect titles. Well, there's no real contemporary, but, you know, compare this to older RPGs from BioWare, and you realize that, in the case of Mass Effect, everybody who is a part of Shepard's team is top of their fields. They're all the best of the best in their own fields, which is why they're a part of Shepard's team, because if they weren't, they never would have made it that far. And the same thing kind of goes for Origins. Well, in the case of Origins, it's... The people who join you are all highly capable. You have Alistair, who is a Grey Warden and a Templar to boot, so not only is he capable of fighting Darkspawn very effectively, he can also fight mages very effectively. You have Sten, who is a captain of the Qunari, and not just that, he is so skilled that as soon as he goes back and there is a vacancy in the hierarchy, he immediately becomes the overarching leader of the entire military. He was literally one step removed from that position because of how good he was. You have Oghren, who, yeah, he's a drunk, but he was also one of the best fighters in the city. And this goes for everybody else. Wynne, one of the best mages. Morrigan, the daughter of the most powerful witch in the setting. You have Liliana, extremely capable bard. As soon as the game ends, she becomes the envoy of the religious leader of the setting. And you have Zevran, who was, again, one of the best assassins of his organization. And this is an important thing. When you are saving the world, you cannot have a group of mediocre individuals. And that's what I mean when I say missing the point. When they were making Veilguard, when they were making Witcher, when they were making Reforged, they missed the point. In the case of Reforged, it didn't have ranked, it didn't allow for custom games, which was what everybody loved. It's like, oh, okay, so you made the things that people liked worse / harder to make. Okay, why do we want this product? Oh, you also destroyed the previous one, so we can't even enjoy that. Got it. Right? Like, you miss the point. And if you take these 3 criteria and apply it to the development of any product, you will understand why it is that you do not want to buy certain games, and why it is that it is important to actually pay attention to the development of games. And again, I specified for remakes, but at the same time, this really applies to anything. Listening to what the fans want, what your target audience wants, important. Understanding your product and caring about it is very important, because it means that when you make a mistake, that mistake was made in earnest, and an earnest mistake is a lot better than a malicious one. And the last one, knowing what you're trying to do. These three things are critical. And if you can get these right, you'll have a good game. And if you can't, you probably won't. Fallout 4 didn't get it right. Not that great of a game. It was successful, but it wasn't that great. Inquisition kinda had it. My problems with Inquisition are gameplay and flow, but yeah, okay. I think that was mostly EA trying to put microtransactions in. But whatever. And there's a million others. Fallout 76, Starfield, missing the point, not caring about the franchise, and not listening to the fans when they say, "Hey, can we go back to stuff like New Vegas, stuff like Fallout 3's, that stuff we liked? Hey, can we stop getting new versions of Skyrim?" You understand what I'm getting at here. I hope this video wasn't too scattered. This was non-scripted. This was just me speaking from the heart. I kind of like doing videos like this. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you didn't. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Join the Discord. I go live almost every day on Twitch. So if you're on the Discord, you'll get notified. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Cheers. Actually, accidentally grabbed this. That's really freaking annoying.